Hello, and welcome to this introductory video on the Kingdom's Giallo. This is a quick start adventure for Espionage, a game of psychics and spies for the Fate condensed system. Starts with a basic introduction of the setting, getting a GM up to speed. I don't know what to do with it. So the idea is that psychics were all over the world are generally recruited by the intelligence community and put to work. So here we have some jargon, mostly a little bit of spy stuff, but a reference to where you can find more of that. And then there's some in-house jargon for the psychic phenomena. So particularly there's cards who are psychic agents. Then there are deuces who are people who have not a psychic power, but effectively superhuman just through intense training. Some of them borders on the psychic. And proposition player, who is typically a spy background, but other kinds of experts too. They don't have any psychic ability, but they're working in the same field. And then there's a psychotronic operator, so psychotronic devices. That's a proposition player who's been issued such a device. And then it's all boilerplate Fate condensed, but I did change the lore skill and I added a side training skill. So the lore skill is basically an awareness of what's possible with psychic abilities and who the players are. And then side training is the ability to use said skills, or said abilities rather. And then there's included one of the side training stunts here, Poker Face, which is a defense one, just because some of the pre-gens have that. And I've got a couple of these two-page spreads for the settings. So this is the villain's home. And then here's the setup. So it all starts off with an agent, a former Mexican agent who was burned, and he's been fugitive using his skills to make a living in Europe. And he discovers something, should I say his name, Ramondo. He has discovered something in Italy, on an island off of the west coast of Italy, that he thinks tipping off the American house might get him in. So there's three different ways you could pick to start the adventure: either call for help, cross paths, or mysterious tip-off. And you should ask the player like, what's their expectation of him? Is he one of these three things? He's a little bit of each of these, but like I find like asking him this question right here really keeps them engaged on that part of him. A little section on entering Italy, because the assumption is that you're playing the pre-gens in this game who are Americans. This can be quite a challenge to smuggle in because you're not supposed to be there. Uh, And then we get a little description on the island and particularly the house where he lives, the bad guy that is. And then here's an example of what the city on the island looks like. And then, of course, it's a James Bond influence, so there's a casino. And then this would be the Amber Room, which is something that went missing in World War II. They concede in this one is that the bad guy acquired it, and he's been experimenting with it to communicate with some sort of psychic entity because Giovanni here is not satisfied with just being the richest man in Italy. He's coming to the end of his life, and he really resents the idea that somebody else would acquire everything that he has earned, he feels, so he is going to destroy the world. Please make a play too. He's got some bodyguards. You got to have James Bond. You got to have a range of bodyguards. These are high fashion head crackers, very Italian feel to them. Here's Ramondo, I mentioned earlier. He is a character sheet right here. And then again, James Bond. We've got to have a bodyguard. That's Yin Yi, who is a Shaolin monk who fell out of the practice and instead discovered nihilism. So he practiced nihilist kung fu. And this is kind of the Bond girl. But in this case, this unfortunate lady has spent too long in the Amber Room, and it has sort of hollowed her out, so turning her into a monster. Hence the Giallo in the title. And then we have a list of some Italian names for the area and some basic characters you can throw in there. If you are stuck for a name, you can just flip to this page and get an authentic Italian name. And then we have the pre-gens. So I mentioned before, they are part of Rainbow Intelligence Services. There's a little bit right up here of them. So this is the agency play sheet. So they've got some aspects and a stunt, and then they have assets. So they can Uh, these are kind of like free compels they get for like if they're looking for equipment. This is support from the agency. So if they need equipment, intel, impunity, or some outside help with a like a driver or something like that, they can do that. And then we have the pre-gens. So Dr. Karaka is a proposition player. She's an expert in psychological warfare and former Air Force recovery officer. Dewey is a card. She has the ability to channel any character she's read. Sometimes they don't leave. And then we have Millie. She is a psychotronic operator, which means she is a proposition player who's been issued a psychotronic device. In this case, it's a flashlight that lets her read auras. Oscar is another proposition player, but he is a male femme fatale. Did I flip the page? Yes, I did. And Codename Burbank, another card. He has a hard time separating fantasy from reality, particularly the fantasy is action movies from the 80s. You can kind of bend reality to his expectations. And Lakapati is a deuce, so they are so good at disguise that it's almost superhuman. And we have another card to end up with. This is codename Yugo. They are a Japanese Don Quixote with a telekinetic katana. And then this will be after this Kickstarter is over. I have 2 more adventures to kickstart before the full game. And there's the cover right there. And here's the novel that started it all that I wrote some years ago. And then my Kickstarter backers, proud I am of all of them. So there you go. So you with this, just these 2 books, you can run this one shot. I've run them a number of times. Sometimes it ends like a traditional James Bond books. Sometimes they end up in Caracosa, and sometimes they make a deal with the bad guy and flip sides. And after coming up next is the next adventure, Sunny Days in Rain, but that's for another video. Thank you very much.